Today we're speaking with Sean Callanan. He's a consultant that advises clubs and associations throughout Australia and around the world. He specialises in technology and social media, and he has some really great insights as to how these groups can better utilise them. He's known as the Sports Geek, and we're about to catch up with him. Joining me, Sean.
No worries.
At Sports Geek HQ.
Yes, we are. We're here in one of the many meeting rooms here.
Yeah, it's a beautiful.
Flamingos aren't my thing, but that's fine. It's
Yeah.
it's the excitement of the startup world.
It's definitely adding to the flavour, I
Yes.
think, of this discussion. So I'd love to start at the start and understand your background. You're a Melbourne boy.
I am. Yep. I been Melbourne born and bred, Victorian born and bred. My dad was a teacher, and we sort of bounced around country Victoria for a little bit, and then I found myself. Came down to uni at Swinburne University, and been in Melbourne ever since.
So love it. Well, it is the sports mecca of the world, they say.
It is, yeah. I like to advocate that it is the sports capital of the world, and have arguments with friends in London and New York, and they're always robust. But I think Melbourne stacks up with any of those cities.
Yeah, I tend to agree. So obviously you get to uni. What are you studying at?
So I was doing Bachelor of Info Tech. It was a combination of business and IT. So yeah, before I was Sports Geek, I was a geek, but always on the side of understanding the business and talking to the business, not locking myself in the cupboard just doing coding. So I did a lot of coding and that kind of thing. So for 15 years, I was in the coding development space in multiple verticals. Did some work in the utilities, electricity industry, gaming and casinos, some startup stuff. So got a broad experience of building out systems, enterprise, the back end from a database point of view to the front end to the website stuff. But it was always a massive sports fan and frustrated with what was happening in the digital space from a sports point of view. And so 9 years ago, I started Sports Geek. And
so, digging into that frustrations or problems that you saw, because you were a fanatical basketball fan, if I got this right, with the Melbourne Tigers.
So I guess my fan story, my sports fan story, sort of starts with the Ballarat Miners, watching them in the Seabull in Ballarat, and then coming down to uni, and then me and my mates deciding, hey, we wanted to go to the Melbourne Tigers games when the Melbourne Tigers moved to Rod Laver Arena, or Flinders Park as it was known then, and there was 15,000 people turning up to the games, and as a young bloke and just enjoyed the games, we decided to make fools of ourselves and had a lot of fun doing it. I guess we were doing fan engagement before it was a term. So it was getting the Mexican wave started and the fans up and about and helping them promote basketball overall. And so I guess that's where the genesis of my sports fandom and sort of getting a bit of insights into the sports business. So I was on like the game entertainment committee with the Melbourne Tigers, helping them plan out halftime entertainment. That did result me one time being in a sumo wrestler suit at halftime. But it was fun to sort of be on that side of it. And so as I was sort of developing an IT developer career, I was always sort of dabbling in sport, whether it be helping out with the Tigers. I did a TV show for the Western Bulldogs on Channel 31 back in the late 90s. And then what we did was, after looking at the sports scene, like I was frustrated as a fan and in the digital space. It would be things like, what were the emails were my favourite team sending me? What was happening on the website? And so when I started Sports Geek, I thought I'd be in that role. I'd be an IT resource to help sports teams understand the architecture of business, how they can have better databases, CRM, how they can communicate with fans better, because I've been fixing those kind of systems for many years. And then when I started Sports Geek and sort of said, what are the opportunities? What can I bring from my skill set as IT, tech, and the sports bent? and this, these couple of these little startups called Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, all of these apps were starting to evolve. And so when I started Sports Geek, it's like, oh, that's my space. Understanding those platforms, both from a fan's point of view, but also, putting on my tech developer hat, what was Zuck trying to do with Facebook? What was Kevin Systrom trying to do with Instagram? What were Evan Jack trying to do with Twitter? And so I came at it from a different angle than, I guess, the pure marketers who were looking at it as a marketing platform. And so I pretty much was banging on the Sports Geek drum saying, hey guys, and when I'm saying guys, I'm talking about teams in general, you need to be understanding these platforms because that's where your fans are. You need to start talking to them. So there was a lot of talking to a lot of clubs and leagues, looking at what was happening in the US and in Europe on what they were doing from a best practice point of view. And sort of that's where I sort of started to find my, I guess, niche for what Sports Geek was, in helping them get into that space and onto those platforms.
So was it embraced at the start, or, arguably, is it still getting embraced?
Yeah, so it was...
What was that level of understanding and that
there was a lot of trying to understand what are these platforms here for? And we had the sports and the sports media world that had been dominated by TV, radio and print, and the model had been TV station pays sport lots of money, sport uses that money to run their sport. And so social media overall were disruptors to that space because teams primarily sent their content, or leagues sent their content, to TV and radio and print. And so when I was starting, and this is 2009, 2010, most teams had like one person updating their website, and they were called a webmaster. And so they were pretty much using their website as a bit of an information service. Here's the teams, here's some news, and they weren't really, the media organisations effectively that we see today. And so there was a little bit of, why are we doing this content, or why are we giving away our content and IP and logos and stuff for free? Why are we putting resources into it? We're not getting money. But then there were leagues that were sort of leading the way to say, well, this is a way for us to reach new fans, and that, terms like fan engagement were starting to be talked about. Teams were starting to see that if we get more data on our fans and get them into our CRM, and that there's money in that. And so it was a slow process. I remember having conversations in 2009, 2010, 2011, pleading with CEOs to put more people on because the fan demand was there. And there wasn't that straight line of, oh cool, we've got this many Facebook likes, it ends up this in our bottom line. But we also saw, hey, this is what we're doing in this space, we're growing this audience, and there's this halo effect on ticketing, membership, attendance, ratings, and the appetite from fans for digital was unabated. Like, you put out more content and they want to consume more content. So a lot of my early years in that space were helping the teams build out those digital teams to start becoming, and looking at it themselves as, football clubs or basketball clubs or netball clubs or cricket clubs, and then media organisations sort of second, and seeing what that offer was available to them.
So have they worked out a clear ROI for those things yet, or is it still sort of like, are those discussions becoming any easier? Because I presume that an ROI on posting a photo isn't too clear.
So I think it's probably, that's it's more macro than micro. I mean, the whole what are we getting from this? But I guess, like I sort of said, that halo effect of, hey, this is growing our database, we're having better communications and email. I think some of the stuff that's probably happened in the last 3 or 4 years of teams and leagues using the advertising products and the targeting capabilities of the platforms like Facebook, we're seeing a lot of teams have a lot of success sell tickets via Facebook, because you can target people who are liking your page, consuming your content, going to your website, and then 2 days before the game, because that they're not a member, they get an offer that, here's the ticket. Oh, that's right, I've got to buy the ticket. And so there's really strong ROI on that, whether it's 3x, 5x, 10x on those kind of budgets. And so those type of campaigns aren't effective or even available if you're not doing this work in this space.
Yeah.
And then the other piece is that we're sort of seeing the sponsorship piece move from I want to put my logo on your jumper or jersey for the media access and the fact it's going to be on TV and all of those kind of things, to you've got a fan base in the digital sphere of this, we want to talk to them. How do we do that? Yeah. That's still developing as far as what do we value that at? How do we value it? How do we charge for it? What's the value of like the digital IP? That's still developing, but there's definitely revenue from a digital sponsorship coming in. There's revenue coming in from digital ticket sales. One of the untapped ones is selling merch. Yeah. Like it's great. You've got a bricks and mortar store that people can come in and buy a t-shirt, but a lot of people can't go in. And 9 years ago, people weren't buying a lot of stuff online. Now it's their first, normally, for a lot of people, it's the way that they prefer to buy. Yeah. So again, setting up that online system and being able to advertise to everyone who can't physically get to your bricks and mortar store, you can see that mix of where our sales are coming from completely change.
So on all of that sort of thing, let's take the example, the Australian cricket team.
Yep.
It's probably the most loved team in Australia, very arguably.
Yep.
But we saw the Commonwealth Bank leave them as a major sponsor.
Yep.
Because they were going to pursue more social media targeting, it would seem. Yep. Of cricket fans. How is that evolving, or is that going to be a broad sort of theme?
So I'm not across the CommBank stuff because the guys at cricket do a great job, but there is a bit of a lesson in the sponsorship space for that, because if the digital offer that you're putting forward is not priced correctly, then you have the opportunistic sponsor will say, well, that channel is more effective for me. I can get better ROI. I can get better customer acquisition through this channel. That the putting the logo, whether it's CommBank or whether it's anyone, on a cricketer or a footballer or a basketballer, does that, how does that have return? It's a bit like, what's the ROI of the bus skin or the tram skin or the bus shelter? Yeah. I know there's metrics around that, but digital is far easier to track all the way through if you can get all the pieces done. So I think there is a potential shift, especially in those customer acquisition type sponsorship segments, that you can get me X many clients. That's what I want to. That's what I want to buy. Yeah. And so, I guess the digital savviness of sponsorship staff overall will want to be wary of that, because if they're splitting it up and giving X amount for digital and that's providing all the value, then the sponsor can go, well, all this other stuff that we don't need. So there still will be options for that, and we're seeing that with the the NBA teams that have just put logos on the jersey, right? And so it still has some credibility in entry to market, awareness of a brand and that kind of thing, and uplift in traffic, all of those things, because people are like, oh, I've never heard of that before. What is it? But the ones that are more acquisition focused, they'll tend to move down the path of digital because it's a platform they're using themselves. So that will be both the challenge in the sponsorship space, but it's also a really big opportunity for sports, because if they can show how they can connect with their customers and help their customers purchase and better engage with sponsors, then they still become the broker of that fan effectively. So that's where the smart teams and rights holders are going to say, we know more about our fans than you do as a sponsor, and we know how to navigate that piece, and that's where the money will
okay. Well, what about the tier below? Obviously, with Tidy HQ, we're working below professional clubs and organisations. They don't have the facilities or the people, resources to furnish themselves with digital specialists and all these sorts of things. How do you see, and I know that you talk to a broad range of people in this space, is there any sort of level of priority with a CRM, social, like What's a plan of attack for these sorts of organisations?
So I always liken, as I said, come from country Victoria and have fond memories of going to, the footy club or the cricket club and having the cars drive up to the oval, and there would be some signage around for all the local businesses, right? And so digital provides that same opportunity, like to say, well, you're going to have a community around what you're doing, whether you're a local, bowls club, basketball club, cricket club, whatever it is. And so if you start treating your digital assets and your digital communities, whether it be Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is, sort of like your oval, and say, this is how people are coming to us. Yeah. And so the same things apply whether you're, Eden Hope Footy Club or you're Arsenal, right? Sponsors are coming to Arsenal and say, how do we connect with your fans? Yeah. The local butcher or whatever is still coming to the club to say, one, yes, I want to support you, but if you're helping them get, go to the butcher, the baker, or get their car serviced at the local mechanic, it's a marketing expense, that kind of thing. So part of it is understanding that piece that you have value in your market because you're bringing people together, and then the other piece is sports. For a lot of the sports, even at the pro level, they're helping the brands understand this space. Yeah. So if you're saying, "Oh, we're doing okay on Facebook. This is what we're doing. We're sharing out some videos, doing some live stuff." And again, it's not, you don't need 3 cameras and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's literally pull out your phone and, hey, we're recording. Here's the latest from the coach. Yeah. That kind of thing. Then you should be able to then talk to a local business who is doing their thing, maybe still doing traditional marketing and that kind of stuff, and say, oh yeah, we're happy to bring you as part of, what we're doing. And so whether that becomes, we're now doing our Thursday night show or announcement, we're doing it at your shop, or we're doing it in your bar, or, you're going to be the event, the event partner, that kind of thing. So it's just a matter of following the steps of what the bigger teams are doing and say, well, how can we do it on our scale?
Yeah, we see a lot of that with basically a consumer wants a professional experience regardless of what club it is, whether it's Collingwood Football Club or the local amateur football club. They want a similar sort of experience. And we see the challenge of these smaller amateur clubs to being able to provide that professional experience without the budgets and the resources to do it. It seems like it's a really... They're struggling with it. They're not too sure the first steps to handle all that sort of thing.
So for me, again, if I look back at some of the, technical costs and equipment that you need to do a whole bunch of stuff like in 2010 to what you can do now, like the amount of, the power that you've got in one of, a smartphone to be able to record, take photos that are of professional quality, that kind of stuff, it makes that a lot easier. And then it's a bit of, just start doing it. Yeah. Just, start doing a few things to see how it works. The more you learn, the more you'll be in front of your sponsors. Yeah. And the main thing that I always ask, the corporate teams or the digital teams working with sponsors is, do you know what the sponsor wants? Right? And, we call it, I've been using it, the Spice Girl strategy, where you ask them, what do they want? What do they really, really want? Right?
That's great.
And so then they say, we just want everyone in our community to know about us. Or I want everyone to turn up to our shop on a Saturday. Or I want 100 people to sign up so my guy can follow them up to see if they want loans. Whatever it is, find that out.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Once you've got that, that's your KPI, that's your ROI. They're not going to come back and say, I want 1,000 Facebook likes. Yeah. You want to stick with what they want to do from a business point of view. So it's easy to get distracted and go, we'll give you an Instagram photo and it'll have lots of likes on it. Yeah. But if you say, we'll get 50 people to come into your shop on a Saturday morning, he'll go, where do I sign? So it's
specific with the goals.
Completely specific. And then the piece that I think grassroots is that community piece that is starting to get a bit disconnect at the pro level because the volume of the size is getting so big, you can't reply to everybody and all that kind of stuff. You should be able to do that in the community space because you know them all. Yeah. Like you see them around. So responding to someone saying, yeah, sure, Isaac, see you on Saturday, shouldn't be that hard. It's just extending what you're doing in real life. So, one of the things I did some talks with some grassroots clubs. Is I gave them an example from the Australian Open. Right, the Australian Open is one of the best major events, and again, it's one of the reasons why Melbourne's the sports capital.
Yeah.
One of the things that they do really well is the AO selfie. Right, so the Australian Open selfie, and the way they activate it is they have these stickers that look like footprints, and they say, "Oh, here's a great spot to take an AO selfie." Like they literally put footprints on the ground with the hashtag and tell people. And the amount of people I see standing on those exact footprints, taking a photo, and I know that it's going to end up on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. Like it's tremendous because you go to the Australian Open and you see them everywhere, but then you go to your social and you've got all these people telling how awesome it is. So if you were to put up a sign in your basketball stadium, at your footy club, or put a frame up and says take your photo, use the hashtag, and if you get 100 people in a small country town or a regional footy club or a suburban footy club, all of their friends are seeing it. And so that's the opportunity that you potentially have to sell or at least show, hey, this is the community we've got. They're willing to promote us, show their pride in our team. That's the advantage, or that's something that's really powerful. And that's potentially where you can get your sponsors involved if you wanted to. But it's a really good proof for, this is our audience, this is what they do.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to dig into some tools now because you're quite a phenomenal athlete in your own right. You're always jet setting around the world and presenting and consulting and what have you. And you are very good. I remember always hearing all these tools that you use to if this then that, and automating a bunch of things or outsourcing it to various people and what have you. Would you have some recommendations as to what tools are good to sort of, like we said it before, they don't have huge amounts of resources, but you can work smarter instead of harder. That's our whole thesis of Tidy HQ. So are there some tools that you'd suggest are great to sort of make some of these things happen?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm going to open with the Tidy HQ because I actually do tell people that's one of the first things. You've got to get your data in order and get your house in order, and I think that's what you guys do really well. And so, that's important. Like hey guys, build your list. Start getting details for everybody. From a tools point of view, some of the ones, and this is some of the ones that I like using Buffer. So Buffer is like a bit of a social media scheduler. Allows you to push it out to multiple channels. That's quite effective. You mentioned if this then that. So it's ifttt.com.
ifttt.com.
If this then that. And it's effectively what's the best way to describe it? It's like it enables you to wire past the internet together. And so some of the ways I use that is I save all the. I go to a conference and there's a particular hashtag where all the tweets are being sent out. I save all those tweets into a Google Sheet. Yeah,
so you say if this hashtag, then create a list or a spreadsheet.
Yeah. So that you could do that with, hey, what support are we getting online? Set that up and it just starts collecting it.
Yeah.
There's a few in that space. Like Instagram. So for mine I still just use it natively. Like I don't use many tools around it. I think there's a lot of advantage of just doing the hard work of double tapping on a lot of things. I
just staying on Instagram for a moment. Instagram TV, just quickly. It's launched not long ago. That's still sort of working it out, I suppose, as you do. But what's your view on Instagram TV versus YouTube versus Facebook?
Yeah, so I guess part of again, I sort of come from it from the tech point of view. So the part you need to understand with Instagram is Facebook owns Instagram. Quite savvy purchase. They bought it for $1 billion. It's now worth $100 billion or whatever it is, which is ridiculous. Facebook is definitely trying to chase down YouTube, and they're pretty much they're going to use you're seeing a lot of video on your Facebook feed. They're moving to that vertical screen with Instagram TV. They're trying to bring content creators across. It's a bit of a wait and see, and it's a bit of like how, like, my concern for not only professional teams but great, it's like you can spread yourself too thin on all of the platforms. But that said, if you've got someone that creates, that is a natural, I do a lot of videos, I'm a vlogger, in your space, then look to embrace it. A lot of the grassroots, YouTube is really effective. It's still it's becoming the primary place for people wanting video. So there's a few different spaces in that. There's a little bit of jury out on Instagram TV for now, but I don't bet against Mark Zuckerberg. So eventually, they'll figure it out. They've done well to sort of put Snapchat in the corner to a certain degree, and what they're doing. So there's a few things in that space.
And and just back to tools. So any other tools that you tend to use well, or think to manage groups? Like we use Trello extensively to run all sorts of things, including committees that we've seen groups do.
So I mean, we've been a big user of Slack as a comms sort of team comms tool.
The Sports Geek community, what's it?
So now, so it's called Sports Geek Nation, where I've sort of built that out with people who work in sport, sort of around the world, and so it's been a really good community to have someone from Chelsea talk about what they're doing on Facebook, and then have someone from the Columbus Blue Jackets say, "Oh, this is what we're doing," and then have people talking about what do people think about Instagram TV. So Slack's useful in that sense, and they're more than welcome to follow the links and check out Sports Geek Nation, but like also using Slack as an internal tool, potentially. A lot of the digital teams are using that as, someone's out in the field, they've got an image, they put it in the Slack channel, and the graphics guy picks it up and then puts it out in the channel. So it can become a workflow piece. The other things that we use a lot of, just to be able to scale out, I guess, different pages and different offers easily. We use lead pages a lot, where it allows us to quickly build out a page to capture details. If I wanted to say, hey guys, there's a Tidy HQ offer, I can take, photo of you, photo of me, go, hey, sign up, hit this detail here, and we can build that out rather quickly, because it feeds into the data acquisition piece. And so where you then feed that data to, we use a tool called Drip, or it can be piped into any sort of back-end CRM to sort of build out that piece. That's something that we use a lot because it plugs in well with like WordPress and those kind of things. So that's more getting down the geeky path of sort of how I've sort of built out the different pieces for Sports Geek, but then also seen it used for sports brands and some teams and stuff that sort of dabbled in that space.
Shifting a little bit. So when we spoke with Trevor Nisbet, he pointed out that the Eagles aren't necessarily competing for hearts and minds with other sports clubs necessarily. In this day and age, you're also competing against the beach and everything else that's in the palm of your hand. What's your point of view on that shift? And it's easier than ever to find out what's going on around the community.
I mean, I think it is. I think it is true. The attention of fans is the attention for eyeballs is everywhere. So it's not only the beach; it's also the movies. It's Netflix. It's Stan. It's Foxtel is evolving. It's still the traditional media players. They're still 7, 9, and 10 are saying, "Hey, what about us?" So all the sports teams are now in that space. So that's it from a media digital point of view. That's a super cluttered market, and so you've got to do some stuff exceptional to rise above it, which is sort of why I like the community angle as a bent for grassroots, because it's something that level can't do. But then the other side of it is the stuff you were talking about before, is the experience thing, right? So the in-game, why am I going, the attendance play, so why am I going to the footy, whether it's AFL or NRL, why am I, or a league, what kind of experience do I want? And so that's seen sports like Big Bash pop up as entertainment sport options, or how the guys at the GWS Giants, how they're pitching the Giants completely different to what Trevor is doing at the West Coast, right? And so that's a little bit about knowing your fans and what they want, and then saying, well, how can we present something to them that serves their purposes and our purposes, whether that's in the digital space and the content you're putting out, or in the game day experience. So it might be, how do we do a great President's Day lunch where people almost feel like they're at an AFL or NRL club lunch? And those kind of things. So, because people are looking for the experience, and I think that's what the success of the Big Bash has been. You know, they went, it's for families, we want to be inclusive of women and they want to feel like it's great to come, and it's going to be lots of entertainment. And yes, there'll be cricket match in there if you really want to see it in the middle. But kids coming away going, oh, I really love Glenn Maxwell or Aaron Finch, and they start that hero piece and they become cricket fans. So, you know, from a grassroots, I went to a VFL game down in Williamstown, you know, last week, and they had, you know, jumping castles and face painting, and, you know, the ice cream van was there, and, you know, you can still drink cans in the outer, like all of those, all the great things about local footy. But they were you could see that they were catering for a few different segments, not just guys who just want to go and, you know, and just drink and watch the footy. It's like same thing. You've got to cater for different people, and you can do that with, you know, the way you set up your stadium and the different parts of the stadium, you know, and the ground and that kind of stuff, to say, oh, it's a good family outing, or but if you're in this segment, you can go here, and we've also got our president's lunch. So it's taking that similar approach to say people want to have a good day out first, and, you know, the sport is the secondary piece, so to a certain degree.
Okay. And so on that, you do seemingly a fair amount over in Europe and the US. Your SEAT conference as well seems tremendously popular. And whenever I've gone to your meetups and so on and listened to guys from the US, it's chalk and cheese, seemingly in a lot of ways, between we're very member focused and around memberships. The US seems to be more about a whole other different way of looking at sport and looking at selling their sport. Can you just talk a little bit about those differences and how you see those two things sort of coming together?
So I think it's a scale thing. You know, 25 million here, or roughly, and 330 million people in the US, for example. So just that scale piece is why the numbers are so out of whack. You're completely correct. You know, very much member focused here in Melbourne, and it sort of started with the AFL, I guess, membership drive, you know, 15, 20 years ago, when they started to say, hey, we want everyone to be members. So it's very much more membership and tribal, and I think there's probably a bit more similarity with Europe. They have that tribal nature. Whereas the US is a little bit more transactional. I mean, even in just the terms, you know, we get called a member here in the AFL, and it'll be a season ticket holder. So it's a little bit of, here's your card. And so there's some of that member culture and language coming into the US. I think the other thing that they do is they activate and leverage their corporate sponsors to as much as they can. You know, and it's funny when I take guests from, you know, mates of mine from America and take them through a tour through a great stadium like the MCG, and then they look at, why is that pylon concrete? Why is it empty? Like, why isn't there a wrap around it? Why isn't there a car there? Right, that's where we'd normally put a car. So like that's where I think there's, you know, they do a really good job of maximising all those opportunities in the stadium. And then, you know, how do they extend into the digital space? Well, there's some fundamentals that sort of drive that. They tend to own their stadiums, whereas the MCG is shared effectively. So there's other things at play as far as, you know, the stadium ownership and stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens at Marvel Stadium with the AFL owning it, Marvel being an entertainment business that's going to have new content every 12 to 18 months, every time they roll out a new movie. So I'm really excited to see what type of, how they, I guess, activate and brand that stadium. How they all weave it together. How they weave it all together, and, you know, it should be good for, you know, families and stuff to go there, and, you know, there's the Tony Stark, Iron Man sort of activation, or all those kind of things. So I think that's something that we're going to see more of, and I think, you know, Optus Stadium, the tech that they're rolling out in stadiums now, and I haven't been to Optus yet, But, all of the things that are there, whether it be the different LEDs, the fact that they can change all the screens, it gives more flexibility for that. So we're not talking about posters and signage and that kind of stuff, because it's all digital and you can click your fingers. So I think there's, that stuff's coming. So it'll be interesting to see what the next sort of 10, 15 years develop here in Australia.
Yeah, okay. And sticking with the US, they have obviously a high school collegiate system versus our amateur club.
Yep.
We don't really have high school competition here for the most part. It's a completely different world, and I remember I went to a Longhorns game over in Texas, and
Hook 'em Horns.
And all the orange, and everyone's fanatical about.
And I think that's where the tribal nature of the US sports system is. It's a college, I bleed orange, or I follow my college till the day I die. I think it's far tighter.
Yeah,
and it's more like Australia, being in the cheer squad or being in the throng.
It's fascinating to me because you see that, like, Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, still going for Auburn College, and whereas I don't even think about the university that I
do like telling my American friends that I played in the national championship game basketball for Swinburne. They don't, but they didn't realise it was like in Australia it's the uni games, and I might have still been a little bit hungover. Exactly. So it wasn't quite the same as Andrew Gazer's Seton Hall Final Four appearance. But I don't have to correct them. I just let them think that. So it is quite funny, but it is a different world. And when people say, hey, I'm going to go over, and they look for the big, 4 or 5, if you want to conclude the MLS, the big leagues, say, I want to go to a game. I always say, do that, but if you can, go to a college game, because one, they're normally cheaper, and they're super. The atmosphere is awesome because the student section is going up and jumping up and down. I've seen some amazing college games.
Yeah, so just sticking with the Longhorns, because I did buy some gear, and it had the swoosh sign everywhere. So Nike and the rest of them leveraged that sort of community at a smaller scale for high school and college. When we transport over here to Australia, we don't see Nike and the brand sort of adopting that community group as much. I presume that a lot of it's the numbers thing.
It is a numbers game,
for sure. It's insane how many people support the Longhorns and all the other teams. But I suppose the driving thing for Nike is that there's a community around that brand, and that's what they're leveraging.
Yeah.
Do you see that sort of coming back here as well?
Well, So I think so. Yeah, it is a scale thing. So Nike will have a 10-year, $250 million deal with Texas. So it's a revenue raiser for them and for the university, and it's a apparel sales kind of thing. So they've got big alumni, big fan bases, and that kind of thing. We still see it to a certain degree at AFL level. But I have spoken to and there's multiple providers in the space, whether they be football jumpers, basketball jerseys, cricket gear, that kind of space. That I've dug in on their business. I'm like, you're not just selling 12 singlets to one team, which they are. They'll do that, and it's we order it, but it's you're kitting out 1, 2, 3 teams, all jumpers and polos and shorts and tracksuits. It's effectively like them securing a school contract to say, hey, here's the school uniform, and we'll be the provider. So there's one. It's a bigger business than you think when you start scratching the surface, and so that was interesting to me when I was talking to a few of the providers. But then the second piece is the ability for them to now sublimate the sponsor logo on the piece on the jumper, and that's not a problem. And again, it's what we talked about earlier, hey, putting the logo on. But for mine, it's cool, but how do we do that announcement? How do we announce, the biggest bang of that would be, cool, yes, you've got to do this deal, and everyone's going to be kitted out all of these things, but if you do your announcement right, and it is a little bit of a ego play to a certain degree to say, hey, here's my business on the local footy club, make sure that everyone in the community knows about it.
Yeah.
And so by doing that, you've ticked that box of, I want lots of eyeballs, I want lots of people seeing it, I want everyone patting me on the back, that kind of thing. And potentially you go from, we're selling our naming rights for this, and everyone gets to see them run around 22 weeks.
Yeah.
To we're going to sell it for this because we're going to make sure everyone's talking to you for a week.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's sort of where you can go. Well, what are the how are the big teams releasing their new kits and new jerseys, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
How can we do it? And then understand that doing that in some way, whether it's just stealing, how the NBA releases their jerseys, is providing value back to your sponsor. And so you can start justifying, this is why we're charging you this.
Yeah.
And if you've got an engaged fan base, they're all going, way to go, looks great, can't wait to wear it, when do we order one? That's the opportunity.
Yeah.
In the local grassroots space.
Yeah, we see that obviously with Tidy. We've got the shop, and we see clubs, and the more successful clubs seem to have a longer vision, I suppose, as to how they're leveraging merchandise and their brand. Because a lot of them, I think, discount how powerful it is to have not only the 100 players that they have in the club, but also the extended network and past player network.
But once you know once you have a feel around, we're going to launch a new jumper or a new polo, and we know how many people will buy it, it becomes a different conversation when you're talking to the supplier that's bringing you, because you've got choices on the supplier side.
Yeah.
And so, the deal that Collingwood gets compared to another team is different because they're like, well, we're Collingwood, we've got all of these fans, we know they'll all buy this. So they get a sweeter deal than someone that doesn't have that data and doesn't have that fan base. So it's just a scale thing. But the more you know, the fact that you can say, we sold X many last year, you can do your projections better. Yeah. But you can potentially negotiate a better deal.
More sophisticated with all your data and all those sorts of things. That's great. And so, swinging it back around to Sports Geek, and where do you see the next few years with sport and tech and social? And I look at your mission of connecting sports fans and sponsors using technology. Yep. How do you see that evolving over the next few years? And what are you recommending, if you can? Yeah. What are you recommending to sports and associations?
My goal, so I'm currently writing a book called Digital to Dollars, which is going through the process that I've gone through with teams around helping them monetize their relationship with fans via digital, which goes back to that sports fans and sponsors using technology. The technology is social and web and some of these tools, and so the reason I'm doing the book is because I'm doing these workshops anyway, and this is how it's evolved. So it's who is in your audience? Do you know who they are? Who are you trying to serve? So getting a good understanding of that. CRM's a big part of that. Understanding your social audience is a big part of that. Then the content piece. Hey, what content are we producing, and which audience are we producing it for? Yeah. So getting a good feeling for, this is why we're doing it. Whether that content is websites, video series, or whether it's just happening on Facebook, or whether it's just a Instagram post series, or whether it's a special that you just do on Instagram TV, whatever it is, like why are we doing this content? Then it's understanding the distribution piece, like where are we sending it? Are we doing it on Facebook? Are we using Instagram? Why? How are we using Instagram stories? So understanding the different levers you can pull. Yeah. But also understanding where your fans are. Oh, wow, we're really seeing lots of people are really liking our one-day Instagram story that covers the whole match. Yeah. Oh, cool. If that's our most active product or content piece we're putting out, that's the piece we want to include our sponsors in, potentially to monetize. So that lends to the point of building out some sort of digital rate card. Yeah. So we can say, hey, if we're going to do a post about, a conversation with the captain, that is sponsorable, this is what we're going to charge for it. So it starts drawing a line in the sand to say, we know we're getting good views and engagement and clicks and those kind of things. And so you can at least say, this is what we're valuing it at, so that valuation piece. And then the last piece is, how do you pull it all together? Like, how do you do that pitch? How do you go back to your sponsor to say, hey, we're going to do this from a content point of view, we're going to run an event, we're going to promote it, all of these kind of things, using all the channels that we've got. So you can say, here's the value piece, whether it's a new major sponsor and how you're going to launch it, or how we're going to get people into their store on a Saturday. So the goal is for that book, to be a bit of a manual for do-it-yourselfers if people want to do it themselves and be applicable at multiple levels, and then also sort of roll out the program for teams to go, okay, get everyone in a room, we're going to go through this whole process, and hopefully we get the data people and the digital content people talking to the sponsorship people and go, oh wow, you're doing stuff that our sponsors really like, because there's a bit of silos sometimes happening.
Yeah, sure.
And if you can get that flow working and everyone's starting to understand what the value of it is, then I think there's some opportunity in that space. So that's where I'll be focused on. I think the sports industry overall is getting to a point where that's getting to mature to understand that, to be able to sell that piece. And so I think that's where the opportunity will lie.
Yeah, okay. And at another level under that, I suppose grassroots, like all of that is applicable at a grassroots level.
And it's just, taking on board, like the example, when I do grassroots, I always use the example of Arsenal, and people go, oh, come on, right? Massive sports brand, but what Rich Clark and his team there and Chris Harris and the guys there, they didn't take on too much, right? Yeah. When they were starting out, they took on one social media platform per year. Cool, we've got Facebook, we figured it out how we're going to do the Facebook, the Arsenal way. Now, how are we going to do Instagram? How are we going to do podcasting or whatever? Yeah. So, there's no need to tackle everything. And I think, Instagram TV is a good example. It's like, let's get our Facebook right. We're doing our X. We're doing we've got our game day right, we've got our midweek content right, we've got our pre-game content right. Cool. Yeah. Now what's Instagram look like? That kind of thing. And then slowly go from there. It's the same process that 9 years ago, Manly Seagulls had one person running it, and that person was actually also the receptionist. Right? Yeah. And so the whole, we can't do it, it's like, well, that's how they started. The Boston Celtics video department started with an intern, and they just put a camera on his shoulder. Yeah. Right? Back when cameras had to be on your shoulder.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So it's a little bit of start there. Start small, get those things right. Once those things are working, expand it out. Yeah. Okay.
No, that's great. I think we'll leave it there. I could talk to you for...
No worries. Well, if they want to do more listening, they can go to the podcast.
Yeah.
Sports Geek, creatively titled. It's available on all your podcast platforms. So there's over 200 eps there.
Yep. There's lots to dig through. I quite enjoy them.
Yeah. So it's and I enjoy the conversation I'm having with different people with different perspectives, different markets. To sort of understand, and hopefully, when you are listening, there will be one or two things that you go, oh, we can do that.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I want to do when I'm having those conversations, to go, whether I'm working at San Francisco Giants, or the Eden Hope Bombers, right? Yeah. We can go, oh, we can try one of those.
Yeah.
Sure. And that's what I try to do with the podcast.
And you're also on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else. Sports Geek HQ. Yeah, your SEO is pretty good.
Sean Callanan on most channels, as Shaq would say. Google me, Chuck.
Yeah,
I'm available.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us in the flamingo room. Not quite the goat room.
No, that's okay.
But flamingos are a close second to goats. So thank you very much.
No worries.
Really appreciate it.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.